In this video I'm gonna show you the strongest relic builds you can use in Elden Ring Nightreign without relying on RNG. All these builds are crafted with guaranteed relics from the character's questlines, the collector signboard and the small jar bazar. It is important to mention that I crafted these builds with the purpose of dealing the max amount of damage possible, which means the highest damage I can obtain, the better placed that build will be placed on this list. To make sure you understand how each build works, first I'm going to quickly show you the relic build, and then I'll show you the performance of that build while I explain how is it working and how you want to use it during the expedition. With that being said, let's jump straight to the number 5. For this build in the slot number 1, we have the Dark Knight of the Wise, a relic you can buy in the collector's signboard once you have beaten the ever dark version of the sentient pest. The first effect of this relic is the increased maximum FP. This effect increases our maximum FP significantly. The second effect is the FP restoration upon successive attacks. That is pretty self-explainable. It means that we are gonna be recovering FP if we are dealing multiple hits in our target. The third effect of this first relic is max FP increase for each Sorcerer's Rise unlocked. This one, in the same way than the first effect, is gonna increase our maximum FP, but it will do it each time we unlock a Sorcerer's Rise. This build works very well with all characters that are capable of hitting fast, such as Duchess or Executor. I personally prefer to play this build with Executor. In those cases I don't like to go for the Sorcerer's Rise, but if I'm playing Duchess I will actually go for them. With both characters is okay, but I wouldn't prioritize going to the Sorcerer's Rise, because the first effect of the relic actually increases the FP by a lot. But if you happen to find a Sorcerer's Rise in your main path, then feel free to unlock it. In the second slot we have the Old Pocket Watch. This relic can be obtained pretty easily after defeating the first boss of the game, Tricephalos or Glarius. I do not mean the new Everdark version, I mean the regular one. It's very probable that you already have this relic and you don't even know it. Once you beat the regular version of Glarius, you just have to talk to the Duchess or the Priestess in order to unlock it, and you will have it available. As I said, you probably already have it. The first effect for this one is the FP restoration upon successive attacks, which is gonna stack with the same effect we have in the Dark Knight of the Wise. And this one also has Dexterity +3, which for characters like Duchess and Executor is a great effect to have available. It's not game changing, but it's really good. In the third slot we have a guaranteed relic we can buy in the small jar bazar. I am not sure if it's immediately unlocked, but if you have been playing the game for a little while, I'm pretty sure you have it available in that store. This one has the partial HP restoration upon post damage attacks. This is one of my favorite effects in Nightreign, because instead of healing you can just counter attack and recover the HP you lost. You just have to be fast enough, something that is not difficult if you are Executor or Duchess. The other two effects is Vigor +2, Poise +2. These are good effects, but the important one is the partial HP restoration upon post damage attacks. Now let's see the performance of this build while I explain how it works. As I already told you, the best feature of this build is being able to use the skills as much as we wish without running out of FP. I think the best characters to play with this setup are Duchess or Executor, because these two characters are perfectly capable of dealing high damage in multiple hits. But for instance, when I play Executor, I like to run the Reverse of Blood, but as you know, the Ash of War of this weapon is quite expensive in terms of FP. So in order to compensate that flow, we can run this setup while spamming the skill as much as we wish, making a more effective use of our FP. If you want to play Duchess with this build, you can also do it, and it's gonna work really good with the same type of weapons you can run with Executor. Sometimes when I play Duchess and I find the Leonora's Pole Blade, which is a great twin blade, I like to use it, despite it is not a magic weapon. But if you are lucky and you find the Carrying Slicer, this build is gonna work with it pretty well too. So the main concept of this is regenerating the FP with successive attacks, or if the skill you are gonna use is already dealing successive attacks, it's gonna be self-sufficient. Some big tips I can give you for this build is always choosing fast weapons. Don't go with colossal weapons, don't go with hammers or things that are not really fast. Go with katanas, daggers, even rapiers, but try to avoid those weapons that are really slow, because you are not gonna be getting the most out of this setup. I recommend you to look for those passive effects that reduce the skill FP, because you can find a talisman that does that, you can find a passive effect that does that, you can run the Millicent's Prosthesis, you can run successive attacks negates damage as passive effects, and in Dormant Powers you can use FP passive effects. You can go for extra FP, you can go for more effective use of the FP, whatever that is around the FP basically. Remember that we have a relic effect that increases our maximum FP by default and each time we open a Sorcerer's Rise, so if we optimize our exploration, I'm pretty sure you are gonna be having a lot of FP, so you can even go for damage buffs. And yeah, this build is basically that. It's pretty simple to use, pretty fun to use, and this way you don't have to rely on always having like 4 or 6 Starlight Shards in your inventory. 2 Starlight Shards you have as backup is gonna be more than fine. Now let's take a look to this awesome build for Ironeye. In this case, for the slot number 1, we have a relic we can obtain in the collector signboard that has the following effects. The first effect are charge activation adds poison effect, exclusive of Ironeye, is gonna proc poison against most enemies each time we charge the ultimate ability of this character. Many people say that there is no reason to charge the ultimate ability of Ironeye because it doesn't increase the damage it deals, but I really like to charge the ability of Ironeye because it gives you more iframes and it looks a lot cooler. And now if you are using this relic, you are gonna be proccing poison on your target, unless it is an enemy that is extremely resistant to poison or immune to it. But in most cases we are gonna be proccing poison, and that is gonna be perfect because in the second effect of this relic we have the attack power up when facing poison afflicted enemy that increases the attack we deal against that poison afflicted enemy by 10%. It is like having a small version of the Kindred of Rod's Exultation talisman. The third effect is the ultimate R gauge on +3. This effect will increase the charge speed of our ultimate ability. In the second slot we have the Knight of the Lord relic. This one is a little bit more complicated to obtain because, as you know, to get your hands on this one you have to defeat the final boss of the game, which I don't consider to be a really easy enemy. But once you beat him we are gonna be getting this sweet relic that for no RNG builds is an amazing one, because we have the following effects. Switching weapons adds an affinity attack. What this one does is adding a temporal and random affinity attack effect in your main weapon like it was a grease. It can be holy damage, magic damage, fire damage or lightning damage. The second effect boosts attack power of added affinity attacks, increases the affinity damage of infusions or weapon buffs by 10%. This means if we infused our weapon in an affinity, we are gonna be getting 10% more damage for that affinity, thanks to the first effect of this relic that coats our weapon with a random affinity attack. But what I consider to be the most important effect of this relic is the switching weapons increases attack power. This one will boost our damage by 10% each time we swap our weapons. We only have to swap our weapons or even just two-hand them and then going back to one-handed to obtain this amazing effect. Many people don't find it practical, but I feel it's the opposite. This relic by itself can give you a lot of more damage. I will say that the minimum this one gives you is 20% more damage. Of course, the only downside will be that you will have to be switching your weapons, but I don't think it's that bad. It's actually something that is pretty common to do, and you can do it as soon as you're gonna start the fight, or as soon as you have the chance of dealing a crit hit, or as soon as you get a punish window. It's gonna be a really fast action and you still have time to punish. And the third relic for this build is the Edge of Order. Honestly, I slept on this relic for Ironeye like for 3 months already, and now I think it's one of the best relics for Ironeye. The first effect of this one is the boost thrusting counterattacks after executing art, which is an exclusive effect of Ironeye. The counterattacks is a movement that is really difficult to perform with most characters because it's exclusive of piercing damage and it only happens each time you attack an enemy while the enemy is attacking you. That is really a complicated thing to do, especially on a game where more enemies will stagger your attack. It happens even with the stronger characters like Ryder or Wilder. Sometimes you're gonna swing your sword intentionally or not when you're about to receive a hit, and in most cases that attack is not gonna hit because you're gonna get your attack interrupted. But with a character with Ironeye which has range attacks that are piercing attacks because of the arrows, this movement is gonna be pretty easy to use. And basically what this effect does is that it increases the damage of this movement by 20% for about 30 seconds after performing the ultimate ability. I actually think it's a great buff because it's 20% more damage on a movement that already has a boost of 35% more damage, if I'm not wrong, for 30 seconds. It's really nice, man. And the second effect of this one is the improved bow attack power. For a bow that is gonna be already pretty strong with all the effects we already stacked. And in the third effect we had the starting armament deals holy damage, which makes a perfect RNG build to face enemies like Hillstor, Libra, the new Gladius, and any other enemy that is weak to holy damage. But in case you don't want to use holy damage and you want to use any other affinity effect, then you can use any other buff you find during the expedition. Instead of upgrading your main bow, you can pick another one, and if you like it you can upgrade that one, and all the build is gonna work with the exception of the last effect, starting armament deals holy damage. But all the rest that I just told you, it's gonna work, making this character a complete monster without relying on RNG. Now let's talk about how this Ironeye build makes sense. As you already know, we are giving up on 2 effects I like to run on this character, which are the extended duration of mark and the +1 additional character skill use. I really like to run these effects with Ironeye because they help me to make a more effective use of the skill of this character, allowing me to deal more damage. However, here we are running no RNG builds, so we have to work with what we have. And in this case with the Knight of the Lord relic, we are going to be increasing our damage significantly each time we swap our weapons. So this means we have to try to do this as much as possible in order to deal more damage with each arrow we shoot. And the cool part of this is that the more damage we deal, the faster we break the mark of Ironeye. So in most cases we won't need to have more time or to have an additional mark effect. The only thing that we need is dealing enough damage. And this is possible just by swapping our weapons constantly. The biggest tip I can give you for this build is equipping 2 bows in your main hand slots. As you already know, we can equip 3 left weapons and 3 right hand weapons. In this case, what I need you to do is equipping 2 bows in your right hand weapons. One is gonna be your main bow that is gonna have the holy damage, and the other one is gonna be any bow you find useful. And the only thing you will have to do is swapping your weapons before start attacking. Even if one of your bows is on the epic level and the other one is only on the rare level, this strategy is gonna give you a lot of damage, and it's gonna be extremely practical because as soon as you swap to the other bow, you're gonna be able to use it. If you want to equip 3 bows, that is also possible. Just make sure that the 3 bows are useful for your build. Otherwise, this is not gonna be as effective as you might think it will be. As I previously told you, you have a holy damage bow as your main weapon, but during the expedition you can find lightning bows, you can find fire bows, or even magic bows. So feel free to run the one you prefer, depending on which Night Lord you are gonna face. And based on which affinity you choose, you are gonna be looking for those passive effects to boost the damage of those affinities you are gonna be playing with. However, there are effects that are in general good with Ironeye, and those are the dormant powers that increases the thrusting counterattacks. In one of our relics we already have that effect after we use the ultimate art, but in this case after defeating some major bosses, since you can also find the increased thrusting counterattacks by 20%, and you already know why that is so great with this character. If you are lucky and you find the Spirit Talisman, make sure to also equip it, because it's probably one of the best talismans you can find with Ironeye. And if you find increased ranged weapon attacks, that is one of the best buffs you can use, whether if it's in talismans or in passive effects. Even if we are running no RNG builds, the game is based on RNG, so sometimes you will find the buffs you need and sometimes you won't, but that is something you can change. That's how the game is. The next build I have for you today is for the good old Wilder. This Nightfire, despite it's not the best to deal the highest damage possible, is definitely my favorite character because it's pretty stylish and really enjoyable to play with. About my favorite part of this character is how fast it feels the gameplay and the traveling across the map, thanks to the grapple and thanks to the follow-up attacks. But for this build we are gonna be giving up the follow-up attacks because we have something better. In the first load we are gonna be using the Wilder's earring that offers as its first effect the +1 additional character skill use for Wilder, which I consider a must-have effect for this character because as I told you previously, thanks to the grapple we are going to be traveling a lot faster across the map. And despite that on this build we will not have the follow-up attacks on Greatsword, this one is going to be pretty useful as well in combat, and you will discover that in just a few more seconds. In the meantime, for the second effect we have the art activation spreads fire in area, which is also an exclusive effect for Wilder. This effect is also pretty important in my opinion for this character because this one spreads fire for a bunch of time after executing the ultimate ability of this character. And the reason why I consider this to be really good is because each time we use the ultimate ability of Wilder, we are gonna be breaking the stance of our target. If for some reason you are not breaking the stance of your target when using the ultimate art of Wilder, it's because you are not charging it. You have to charge it. How do you charge it? Just hold the button until the explosion happens. This way you're gonna stay on your place, you're gonna be dealing more damage and more stance damage. So why is this so freaking useful? Because in this game, even if you are performing a critical hit, which is the smartest thing to do after you break the stance of an enemy, unlike that what happens in the regular Elden Ring, your target is gonna take damage from other sources, despite you are performing a crit hit on it. So that means you are gonna be dealing additional damage while you perform a crit hit. And you know that after you perform a crit hit, your target is gonna take a little bit of time to completely recover, so you're gonna be dealing a lot of damage with this effect. In the third slot we have the stamina recovery upon landing attacks, which basically recovers a little bit of your stamina, or better said, most than recovery. What it does is that with each successful attacks you're not gonna be losing that much stamina. That is the way I like to think about this effect, because if you're attacking constantly you're gonna still lose stamina but at a lower pace. And I really love this effect because it has great synergy with our second relic, that is the Dark Knight of the Beast, a relic that you can buy from the collector's signboard once you have defeated the Everdark version of Gladius. This is probably one of the hardest relics to obtain because that guy is destructive and now it's not even available, so you're gonna have to wait for it to be able to obtain this one. If you don't have it yet, of course. I really hope you already have it, but if not, you're gonna have to wait. The first effect of this one is the stamina recovery upon landing attacks on +1, which is gonna stack with your previous stamina recovery upon landing attacks. That is amazing because, as I said, our stamina is gonna be consumed significantly slower. The second effect of this relic is taking attacks improves attack power. This effect increases our damage by 15% for 10 seconds after we receive a hit. I personally consider this one as free damage, because in this game, unless you are a pro player or you are performing a challenge run, it's 100% guaranteed that you're gonna be taking at least a hit. So yeah, it's basically free damage for 10 seconds, and if you take another hit, the duration is gonna reset. Both this relic is absolutely broken, because we also have the fire attack power of +2 that increases our fire damage by 6.5%, which for a character like Wilder, that his entire personality is based on fire damage, yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty useful. And I told you that for this one we have something better than the follow-up attacks for greatswords, right? And that is exactly what we have here. The third relic that you can buy from the collector signboard has the following effects. The first effect, sadly, is just gonna be replaced by the Wilder's earring art activation spreads fire in area. See, so this one is basically like having a medium-sized relic, because the first effect is gonna be useless. Well, it's not useless, but we already have it on our first relic, and as it doesn't stack, so it's just basically non-existent. But that doesn't even matter, because with this one we have the change compatible armament skill to flaming strike at the start of expedition as the second effect. And if the description of this one wasn't clear enough, this means that in our starting weapon we are gonna have flaming strike, which I consider the best fire Ash of War available in this game. Because as you know, this Ash of War is pretty cool and deals a lot of damage, but it also cuts our weapon on fire for 30 seconds, or a lot better than the fire damage we get for the follow-up attacks. And as you know, we already have fire attack power up +2 from the Dark Knight of the Beast relic, but we also have fire attack power up +2 on this relic. So we are gonna be having like around 14% more fire damage because the buffs stack multiplicatively in this game. Definitely my favorite no RNG setup for this character. Now let's take a look at the performance of this one. For the Wilder build, I can't give you many recommendations. This character is pretty easy to use, but I strongly recommend you to always use your skill. If you are fighting, use it to get close to the target and use the flaming strike you have in your main weapon if you haven't found any other weapon that you consider to be better. Remember that you have a great boost in your fire damage, so using that Ash of War is gonna be pretty effective with this character. So use your skill combined with the Ash of War, like if the Ash of War was your follow-up attacks with the greatsword. And when you're not in combat, make sure to use your skill to travel a lot faster across the map. In a game where the time is so important, saving a little bit of this valued resource by moving faster is gonna pay really well. It's pretty obvious that you are gonna be looking for fire attack buffs. The best talisman for this is the Fire Scorpion Charm, but you can also run the Ritual Sword Talisman. You can also go with the Dagger Talisman, because as you already know, with the ultimate of this character, you're gonna be breaking the stance of all the enemies, so you can get a free critical hit. And remember that we also have the spread fire after using the ultimate artifact in one of our relics, so that talisman is gonna work as well. In passive effects is gonna be the same. Fire attack power is gonna be your priority. Improve attack power at full HP can be good as well. Successive attacks negates damage is amazing too, and improve critical hits. In dormant powers you can increase the stance damage you deal, you can increase the affinity attack power you deal, or the physical attack power as well. Despite our weapon is gonna be based mostly on fire damage, we are always dealing a part of physical damage, so that buff is very useful as well. And when it comes to Night Lords, I recommend you to always open with your ultimate. This way you're gonna start with some good damage, and if you are lucky you might even skip to the second phase of that boss fight. And yeah, with this build there is not a lot that I can tell you. While there is a very easy character to use, it's really powerful, but if you want to make it even easier, it is also very good to run a power stance build with 2 greatswords. It's a good way to deal some stance damage and to play without a piece of skill. Just use your jump attacks and you're gonna win every fight. In the second place of this list, we have a build that I like to call the triple status effect build. With some characters it's gonna be only 2, but with Executor it's gonna be 3. I recommend you to run this build with Dodges or with Executor. If you really want the triple status effect, then run it with Executor. You're gonna be able to have Frostbite, Poison, and Bleed. The Bleed effect will be by default on your katana, that's why it only works with Executor. With Dodges we're gonna have only 2, which are Poison and Frostbite, but that doesn't mean we're gonna be dealing less damage with this character. This build is insane with both characters. I can't even tell you which one is better, but both of them are insanely stupid with this one. Just for the record, the only way you can outdamage this build with Executor is by using the Seppuku Ash of War with the new Knight of the Miasma relic, the Dark Knight of the Miasma. However, However, that one requires a little bit of RNG, and this one for almost the same amount of damage requires no RNG. So enough blah blah blah. In our first relic we have the Knight of the Miasma, the regular one that has the chilling mist at the start of expedition for our starting weapon with the attack power up when facing frostbite afflicted enemy. You know why this is so broken, right? Just with these two effects the relic is already pretty strong, but in this one we also have as the first effect the frostbite in vicinity concealed self that is gonna hide your character each time you proc frostbite, an extremely broken effect when facing multiple targets. This one is really stupid because if you are fighting multiple enemies, each time you proc frostbite you are gonna be hidden, and despite you're gonna be able to play stealth for a few seconds dealing free hits, also for some reason you are not gonna be consuming stamina, which makes it absolutely stupid in my opinion, bro. In our second relic we have the regular Knight of the Wise that has the increased maximum FP, an effect you already know because of a previous build we covered in this video. It has the starting armament inflicts poison. This means that in the affinity slot of the possible things we can do with our starting weapon, we are gonna have poison. This is the reason why this build works very well. In the affinity part of our weapon we have poison, and in the Ash of War we have chilling mist. So just by that we have frostbite and poison. And if you are playing Executor, your katana has already bleed by default. So that's how you stack 3 status effect in one single weapon. And if that wasn't enough, this one has poison and rot in vicinity increases attack power, which is basically the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation talisman. So in our first relic with the attack power up when facing frostbite afflicted enemy, we have a 10% more damage over an enemy that is already receiving 20% more damage because of the frostbite. In the first relic we have 30% more damage, and the poison and rot in vicinity increases attack power is not the same than attack power up facing poison afflicted enemy. That one will increase your damage only by 10%. This one does it by 20%. And in the third slot for this build we have the always reliable Everjail relic, which as you already know is gonna increase your damage by 5% each time you complete an Everjail. It's a little bit more than 5% because it stacks multiplicatively, but to keep it simple, if you complete at least 3 Everjails per match, you're gonna be getting 15% more damage just by that. Personally, I don't like this relic a lot with other builds, especially with all those builds where I can use RNG, but for no RNG builds this relic is absolutely broken. And if you want to keep the playstyle really simple, just keep farming as much Everjails as you can possibly do. This relic effect also have the treasure marked upon map, which is like a really good optional feature that is going to help you to find some chests that have good loot in the map, but it's not absolutely necessary. It's just an additional perk that is not bad to have if you happen to find a chest that is close to your main path. And in the third effect we have the Stone Sword King possession at the start of expedition, which makes it even better because it has the attack power increase for the Everjail prisoners. So as you can see, this is a pretty solid build, but it's not the best. Now let's see how this one goes, and we will go for the best one. Now we are stepping into the really broken no RNG builds. The Wilder one is really good, but this one is something else. I recommend you to use this build with Executor because it's the only way you can get the triple status effect, but you can also use it with dodges. That is something that you need to know. I really like to run this build with dodges when I want to form the Crucible Knights pretty fast to get to high levels in the day 1. You can even get to level 15 in the day 1 with this build. But if you're looking for the highest DPS possible with this build, your best option is gonna be Executor. Because as I already explained, we have Frostbite with the Chilling Mist, we have Poison in the affinity slot of the Relics, and we have Bleed by default in our starting katana. The only way to outdamage Executor with this build is using the Seppuku build, but that one requires RNG, and it's not that better than this one. It's better, but it's not day and night. It's slightly better. I would say like the Seppuku one is maybe 10% stronger, 15% stronger at max. So this one is a really good build as well. And I can't give you many tips for this one. Just look for something like the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, the Kindred of Blood's Exaltation for talismans. The same effects you can find them as dormant powers. You can use the Millicent's Prosthesis as a talisman. You can look as well for successive attacks negates damage. You can pretty much customize your build as you wish because you're gonna be dealing a lot of damage thanks to the relic setup. But a pretty useful tip I can give you is not using the katana two-handed. If you do this, you are gonna reduce your speed and your damage is not gonna grow because you are using a katana, and the katanas are not scaling with strength compared to a greatsword or to a colossal weapon. And I believe in this game is not the same as in Elden Ring, so I find always using the weapon one-handed a lot better, even if you are running a strong character like Rider. So yeah, if you want to get the most out of this one, make sure to always run your katana with your right hand weapon and one-handed. And the strongest no RNG build I have for you today is the Rider crit hit build. I consider this to be the most effective way to play this character because only with Rider we are gonna be able to deal massive critical hits. I consider this to be the best way to play this character because Rider can get the highest AR possible with the colossal weapons, which is the weapon class that has the highest damage possible in one single hit. The concept of this build is quite simple, dealing the highest amount of damage possible in one single critical hit, sometimes taking more than the half of the total HP bar of an enemy, which I consider to be a lot of damage. In some cases, if you find the right buffs during the expedition, you can even defeat an Everdark boss with only one critical hit. The first relic we are gonna use for this build is the Dark Knight of the Baron that has the improved critical hits +1 and exclusive effects from the Dark Knight of the Baron and Knight of the Baron relics, which cannot be stacked together. This means we can't use both Knight of the Baron relics at the same time because the improved critical hits +1 is not gonna stack. You can buy the Dark Knight of the Baron in the collector's signboard once you have defeated the Everdark version of Adele. However, the improved critical hits +1 can easily stack with improved critical hits with the regular one. So we are gonna be trying to stack as much crit hit buffs with this build. In this case, we are talking about a no RNG build. So this means we won't be able to stack triple improved critical hits, and not because we don't have enough relics with this effect. The problem is that we don't have available the color combination required to use all the guaranteed relics with improved critical hits effect. However, that is not a problem because in the second slot we have the Thorn Braided Cord. That is a guaranteed relic we can obtain just by progressing the questline of Rider. This one has the exclusive effect for Rider, damage taken while using character skill improves attack power and stamina. If we take a hit while using the skill of this character, we are gonna be increasing our attack power by 10% for 30 seconds and our total stamina by 20% for 30 seconds as well. And the second effect it has is a strength +3. The important effect here is the exclusive of Rider. I'm choosing to use this one over the Dark Knight of the Demon because you can also use the Dark Knight of the Demon here because it has the taking attacks improves attack power. However, that attack power boost only lasts 10 seconds. So despite it's gonna be giving you a little bit of extra damage, it's gonna be slightly less consistent than using the Thorn Braided Cord. But it doesn't matter which one you choose, both options are amazing. And in the third slot we are using a guaranteed relic we can buy in the small jar bazar that has the improved critical hits. That, as you already know, increases your critical hits by 15%. And here is where it's important to mention that all these builds can be massively improved depending on what you find during your expedition. If you take the time to explore important locations like the castle, like forts, or locations where you can find a wide variety of loot, I am pretty sure you are gonna be getting the buffs you need. There is another good alternative for this build which uses the Dark Knight of the Baron with a guaranteed relic we can buy from the collector's signboard that also has the improved crit hits but with the character skill cooldown reduction on +2, which is gonna allow you to use the skill with a little bit of higher frequency, but it's not a big deal. And we can also use another relic we can buy in the collector's signboard that increases our stance damage while power stancing, and it also has stamina recovery upon landing attacks and endurance +3, which is gonna be useful in the early game because, as you know, using colossal weapons can be really expensive when it comes to stamina. Both options are great, but I prefer the first one I showed you. Now let's take a look at the performance of this one. Now this is the most broken build you will find in this game. Many people will tell you that you always need to use the Evergale relic in your builds to make your characters as strong as possible, but that is not true. There are multiple alternatives that I already showed you in the previous video where I show you the best build for every Night Farer. The cool thing about the crit hit build that I show you there, which is the most broken build in that video and it's gonna be the most broken build here, is that it can be crafted pretty easily without relying on RNG. Of course, with a good RNG we can make it slightly better, but the base, the strength of this build can be crafted without relying on RNG. And the only thing you have to be doing during your expeditions is looking for those effects that are effective against the boss you are fighting. As you can see in these clips, I am destroying the targets with a single critical hit. That is because I'm using this relic setup, but I am also looking for improved critical hit effects, in passive effects from weapons, and if you are lucky, in the Dagger Talisman. We have two dormant powers that are based on crit hits, which are the increased enemy damage after critical hit by 15% and bleed on our weapon after dealing a critical hit. That is also pretty useful. That will be the broadest aspect on how to use this build, just looking for critical hit buffs. However, as you know, the Night Lords have weaknesses. I'm gonna use Adele for this example. If you pay attention to the deepest aspects of this game, you will know that Adele is a dragon type enemy. This means that they are gonna be absorbing 20% of your damage. In order to deal more damage to the dragon type enemies, you have to use the anti-dragon grease or an anti-dragon dormant power you can obtain in the mountaintop shifting earth event. So if we are gonna be fighting enemies like Adele or Caligo, we are not gonna be running the crater, we are not gonna be running Noclateo, we are gonna be running the mountain tops. And in multiple maps of the mountain tops shifting earth events, we are gonna have the village merchant, and that village merchant is gonna sell the anti-dragon grease, which we can stack with the anti-dragon effect we can obtain in the shifting earth event, making our character even stronger against the enemy we are gonna face. Also, Adele has an insane resistance to lightning damage, so we are not gonna be using lightning weapons, not even fire weapons, because that guy is also resistant to that type of damage. We are gonna be using magic weapons if we want, physical damage weapons only, that will be the best, or even holy damage weapons. Having knowledge about what you are gonna do is gonna increase the final power of your critical hit. Let me know in the comment section what do you think of these builds. If you know another no RNG build that you consider should be in this video, I will be reading your comments. Have a great day guys, my name is Carlos and I'll see you in the next one.